ESPN released like a huge article about James Krause and what he's pretty much being accused of doing, and now we have more. Me and you, we talked about it, and we were talking about maybe like, oh, what he did for this fight. Man, it is way worse. There's like multiple sources talking to ESPN, and basically, in short, what they're accusing him is of being an agent for an offshore sports book that's based in Costa Rica. And for anybody who doesn't know, an agent is kind of like for like a sports book in another country is kind of like they're like a middleman in a way. Like they work for that sports book and they try to get people in the U.S. to be on it. And like he's kind of just the middleman. Like he takes like the login, he gives them login information, credit, and stuff like that. And he even offered, in the article it said they offered kickbacks for referrals. So like he would give you money like towards your account, like if you would refer. Like it's wild how deep this goes, if true. I mean, obviously, like many people aren't, but I'm still of the belief that it's innocent until proven guilty. But it's not looking good for him. I'm gonna say that. So, and I'm sure they're like I said, I don't think the Nevada State Athletic Commission would have suspended him if it like for nothing. Like that's like a big deal, and the UFC's banning him from like coaching. So
I mean, my question is like, outside of obviously making a lot of money doing this, more than probably anything else he does.
He said that verbatim on Ariel. So that's a
undoubtedly quote. More than anything else he does.
Yeah.
Why
not anymore.
Why in the way that he does it, and then why like him, for instance, like a former fighter himself, and now one of the best coaches.
And now it's ruined.
Yeah.
Even if like he somehow is like proven in. Well, then again, because in MMA it's not really that type of community with.
Like you would think, just off those two things alone, like he already has like just a built-in advantage, like Yeah. As long as you like, at the end of the day, like, okay, so when we're doing the sports book and all, like, I kind of made sure to hammer this point home that like value is the name of the game. So it's all about the numbers, obviously, when it comes to betting. So literally, but like, this is like with a sport like MMA, for instance, like, it's like, you don't just like numbers and all that. Like they obviously matter a whole lot, but like at the end of the day, like it's one-on-one, like anything like could happen, like with team sports, and obviously like correlation and all that, like that's a lot more to like easier to like dive in with like the numbers and all that, and then stats or whatever. MMA, like you have no idea how any fight is actually going to play out. Like you can only make all you have is like the built-in like knowledge already that you can apply to what you're betting on. So like just from that alone, like, you would think like, all right, like he would be like, as long as he gets like he understands like the basics and all, like the fundamentals, I guess, of like just how sports betting in general works, then like he should do pretty well anyways.
Hey man, if you're an agent for an offshore sportsbook, I'd say he more than understands the rules. It's crazy.
Exactly, but now that's what I'm asking. Like, how does it get to that point?
I don't know. I mean, he obviously has like his MMA like betting club. I think it's called like the 1% Club or something like that. Yeah, the 1% Club. And so you pay to be in it, and he says there's some high rollers in there too, like they're betting real money. So like, and they're paying him too sometimes to like take over their accounts and bet for. It's like, this is a whole big thing. And then even like you were talking about like the built-in advantage of it. Even Jeff Molina, who's like a UFC flyweight, who I think got suspended because of this too. He said, and I'll read just the article like
like there's these people. Some of these guys are still involved with the UFC themselves.
Yeah, well, Molina's suspended according to the article, but he said, and this is a quote: "He's trained with a lot of fighters." Talking about James Krause, he's trained with a lot of fighters, lives and breathes this sport as a coach/fighter, and at times has the scoop on injuries, non-announced matchups, how fighters look in camp, etc. Molina wrote in touting the club. In stocks, this is called insider trading. In MMA betting, this is called James Krause. That's quite a quote right there. And then the rest of it, he said, for the last 6 months, all my bills, including mortgage and car note, have been paid via Krause Picks. Do yourself a favor and join the VIP. But like, so in that one paragraph, you got him telling, James Krause telling people about the scoop on injuries, non-announced matchups, fighters in camp. that's legitimate insider information. Like, hey, this guy's not really looking good so far. He got hurt in sparring. But then he literally compared it to insider trading. Like, how? Oh my god, man, this has turned into a big problem.
Now it's coming together as to like, okay, because he works with some of these guys, because he's a former fighter himself. All right, now he's gonna use it as, you know,
a way to make money.
Yeah, a way to make a bunch of fucking money. And like, what did it say in that article that even his own, like, I mean, obviously the Derek Minner, like, you know, he already knew about the injury, so of course he's gonna, you know, gonna bet on the other.
I don't know if you saw this when you were reading it, but he talked to ESPN, like the writer of the article, and he was telling them about like how like obviously like he had a minor knee injury coming in, and it was obviously aggravated during the fight. But then when they asked him if Krause had been doing what he's being accused of with this offshore betting stuff, he declined to comment and promptly ended the call, said, I'm going to, like, you know, just talk to my attorney. And just want to point this out. We've talked about fighter pay many times. These fighters are not getting paid enough money to keep an attorney on retainer most of the time. Maybe, like, their management. But I don't know. Then again, if they're any bit involved in what Krause is doing, they might be making a lot of money and enough to have an attorney. But they said in the article that no, he never provided an attorney, and an attorney never reached out. So that just makes me believe that he was just trying to get off the phone call and just like probably panicked. But who knows? Honestly, like anything could really happen with this.
That's just that's insider trading if I've ever heard it.
Yeah, and like I'm trying to read. Okay, so and UFC or UFC U.S. residents, not UFC residents. U.S. residents who have worked as agents for offshore sports books have been charged with crimes such as tax evasion, operating an illegal sports betting organization, and money laundering. And the Department of Justice has accused offshore sports books that serve U.S. bettors of violating the Wire Act, which is a federal statute that prohibits those, quote, engaged in the business of betting, end quote, from knowingly transmitting wagering information across state lines. So not a lot of things you want to be involved with, you know what I mean? And, you know, if James Krause is charged with any of those things, like that's time in like prison, I'm pretty sure. So this goes above the UFC at this point. Like this is definitely the worst betting scandal in UFC history.
Maybe
if all this
like
is true.
This is also like, you know, part of like why he's the coach he is, and like he thinks the way he does. Like he just, in a way, he just like, you know, that better inside of him, just like, okay, like, you know, thinking about like, okay, the absolute like, you know, the absolute most like optimal outcome of like whatever fight, whatever situation, and a round or whatever it might be, or it's just like, you know, just like, you know, probably not, obviously not thinking as much of what could go wrong for obviously the guy he's betting on, but like, you know, like obviously like he understands that too, and so like maybe has to like pivot or whatever.
It's just that inside information bothers me, man. Like, you know about how these, like, you could tell these people, and this is a lot of people betting a lot of money, that a fighter maybe got hurt in sparring, or he tweaked something doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
like that's a big deal. That could change lines. Like, and then obviously in the fight that all this came out about, Derek Minner came in with a knee injury, and he knew that. So like, you gotta wonder like how long this has been going on. Like what he's really being accused of is just kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to like, you know, I get, you know, obviously, yeah, like the money at the end of the day, but it also is like, you know, like this is a former fighter and then one of the best coaches. It's kind of like hard to just imagine like he would just, you know, stain like the integrity of the sport like that.
Yeah, this is really, really bad no matter what happens with it. And like you said, it's a big stain on the integrity of this sport. And James Krause's career, definitely coaching in the UFC, is probably over, especially if this is true. And, you know, this is obviously, and it sucks too because James Krause is like known as like the father of like MMA in like Kansas City pretty much. Like he started the movement there pretty much, and he's the head coach of that gym. And it's just it's wild. It really is. Yeah, it is wild.
You know, once again, I you know, I get it. Like, okay, you know, taking your passion, like what you're, you know, obviously what you're really good at, and then combining it with something else to make, you know, even more money doing it. Like, I get it in that sense, but
you shouldn't break the law while doing it. Like that's
exactly.
I feel like because he's a very smart dude, So you definitely had to know that this was like sketchy. Like I don't think that anybody of his
Yeah, he
intelligence
took
level would
this
think
to
that this
the
is
absolute
legal.
extreme.
Yeah, it's funny too that I met him in Vegas. I'm pretty sure. Obviously,
Yeah,
you know about this,
yeah.
but like, it's funny too. I don't know if I've ever told this story on the pod, but I might as well tell it again because if I didn't, if I did, it was probably a while ago. So obviously, I met him like at the same time as Brandon Moreno and like Cheeto Vera, and obviously, me and him talk betting strategies. No, no, that didn't happen. But um, it was funny. Like in like 2019, he was in like a quintet ultra like grappling thing on Fight Pass, and he hit King Mo Lawal with like a nice guillotine, like while Mo Lawal was standing, and like
Yeah.
Krause just latched onto his neck. It was wild. And I always said like if I ever had a chance to meet him, I'm gonna tell him how sick that was because I bet he never hears about it. And like obviously like a year later, I end up going to Vegas. And I meet him. I'm like, no way, I'm gonna be able to tell James Krause this. And I actually got to tell him it was dope. He's cool. And like, obviously we're talking about the news as it's given to us here, but like, my personal experience, like meeting him, really cool dude. Like one of the nicest people ever. Like he was taught. I got to like obviously tell him about that jiu-jitsu match, and you could tell he was like hyped to hear that. Like I knew what that was, and like he was telling me a little bit about it. So like I have nothing like but positivity to say in terms of like my personal interaction with James Krause, but in terms of what these sources are saying on ESPN, he might be in some really, really deep shit.